I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox News.
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News. On the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3. WDXE.
Hey, it is WDXE, and it's Friday, and that means my friend Stan Pierchoski is in here, Pierchoski Estate Law, and good to see you again, my friend.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning.
How has been your week?
We are here for bulletproof estate planning once again.
Once again.
Welcome to the fastest hour of my week.
It does go by fast.
It does.
Yeah.
My week has been pretty hectic. I'm a little bit tired today. It seems like I didn't get home till late almost every day this week, and just a lot going on and a lot of fires to put out, kind of thing. Unplanned things. But
have those weeks.
I mean, everything gets taken care of, but just kind of weighs you down after a while, But, we did have one 10-care approval come in. That was always those are always good times to call the family and let them know that.
Yeah.
But I will share, when I get into it, something that happened with me with 10-care this week that was, I don't know, really did weigh heavy on me, but I'll share that as we get to it. But just experience of dealing with them, it's just the pleasure of dealing with a government operation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not necessarily anti-government. But I often don't agree with them. I often think they're inefficient. And I often think they're a bunch of knuckleheads that just don't know what the heck they're doing because they probably hire the wrong people, and it's maybe not their fault. They just don't know. They don't get trained. They don't get taught. They're just thrown into the deep end of the pool. But they're frustrating to deal with.
Yes.
And I think that goes to any government operation, not just this one. But this one's no different, and it probably is one of the ones at the top of the list for incompetence.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And again, I don't say that to bash them, although I guess it sure sounds that way, but I say it to warn people that if you're going to deal with these people and take them on your own, you're going to have your hands full, and you're not going to know what's going on, because half the time we have to spend time figuring out why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Because they don't explain a thing. They just do it. You think, okay, where'd this come from? But we can usually back it out and figure it, but I'll share that, but I want to go over my seminar, which is tomorrow.
Oh, that is right. It's tomorrow.
And we've got a pretty good turnout so far. I hope the rain doesn't keep folks away. It's not going to be stormy. It's just going to be maybe wet. And they're calling for chances of rain. So like right now, it's wet, but it's not actually raining just yet.
A lot of us are welcoming the rain.
That's right.
That's
true.
Right.
And I'm kind of glad, I know we hadn't had rain for a long time, but I was kind of concerned that they were calling for 4 inches. And 4 inches all at one time is not the solution.
No.
Because 90% of it's going to run off because the ground is hard, it's dry, it takes a lot to soak in. This drizzling over hours and hours is probably the best way it can be.
Oh, yeah, I like it.
But, all at one time, it just does nothing but more damage.
We had a good, slow, steady rain at the house yesterday, so it was nice.
That's right. So the seminar is tomorrow. It's over in Pulaski. It's at the American Legion. Now, I went over there earlier the week to just kind of see the setup, and they have, they spent some time and money over the last couple of years remodeling and refixing. It is a very nice little venue. It's a very comfortable, cozy room they have. They got tables, they got chairs. I don't have to set anything out because they are always there. And, it holds quite a bit. I think a capacity of about 80. And I think the RSVP list is, so far is pushing 40. So it's going to be a good crowd. And if you hadn't come to one for a while, I don't do them as often. We're reviewing that for the next year, but, I do them about every other month. And when I do them every other month, I do them in different places. So, we hadn't been here in Lawrenceburg for a while, and it's, the next one we do after tomorrow is up in Franklin in November, and so that pushes us to January. So it'd be, we don't get back to the same place as often as we used to.
Yeah.
So we got this seminar. If you're in Lawrenceburg and you want to come to it, Pulaski's a very easy drive.
Absolutely.
Very easy drive. And the American Legion's right there, a couple blocks off the square. If you don't know where it is, I'm sure if you put in your Google phone, American Legion, Pulaski, it'll take you right there. If not, the actual address is 425 Legion Drive. It's right up there on the hill. And again, come in. Here we have to say, we call it Wills, Trust in the Nursing Home. And that's what we talk about. And it's kind of geared toward folks who have interest in those areas. And so it's a seminar, so we spend about an hour. My presentation is about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes long. And so it's not a real deep dive into stuff because we only have an hour or so, right? But we want to cover these topics and tell folks that they have options about certain things. If you're interested in those options, then we can schedule something and move forward. If not, that's okay too. But it's a free educational seminar. There'll be some refreshments there, but please don't expect it to be a free meal and a sales pitch, because it's not. We have some light refreshments just to have something there. But it's a jam-packed hour full of information, and no obligation. So, sometimes I get people call and say, well, am I going to have to commit to something? Or, you're going to lock the door and make me sign something before I leave or something. Please, it's nothing like that.
Yeah,
if you want to get up and leave, get up and leave. If you want to stay, stay. If you want to have seconds or thirds on the refreshments, because the girls make the best cinnamon and blueberry muffins. That I got a guy who's come back 2 or 3 times just for the blueberry muffins. I'm telling you. So help yourself. I mean, it's just here so you can hear some options. If you like them, that's great. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't. Then it doesn't fit. We're not going to try and make it fit. So that's what it is. So just learn and bring questions. One thing I do that I don't think anybody else does, or at least doesn't do without charging for it, is I welcome questions. So if you have a question that's been bothering you, or you've been talking to other people, and everybody has questions on this, everybody, and which is why they come to the seminar, right? The people that don't come don't even think about this kind of stuff. So if you have questions, bring them and ask me. I will answer them. And if you develop things during the presentation, ask those questions. The only thing I say at the beginning, the only thing I ask, if you have a question, just hold off to the Q&A at the end. And, sometimes I've been there almost 2 hours answering questions.
Oh, wow.
And I won't leave until that's all done. I don't think we have a time limit at the Legion. In other words, they're not going to kick us out. I know we up at Franklin, we have to rent for so many hours.
Right.
And we kind of have an end time. But still, that's like 1 o'clock or something. But I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, I give that time freely. So just take advantage of it. I'm not going to send you a bill for 2.2 hours like it's like some folks in the industry do.
Oh, yeah.
I don't do that. Even when I do my planning for folks, everything's a flat fee. I do not do an hourly thing. So call me as many times as you want. Talk to me as many times as you want. Email me. I don't, it's too much. I think I'm just too lazy, or it's too much trouble to keep up with that kind of stuff. So I don't mind talking to folks. I don't mind answering your questions. I'll be more than happy to do it. Bring them. I want to clear up the misunderstanding and the misinformation that is just rampant out there between what people say and what's on the internet. And it's been that way for 6 decades.
Oh, yeah.
Medicaid was 59 years old on July the 31st, just passed here. Okay? So it's coming up. It's 6 decades it's been around, 1965. So, and it still is not well understood, or at least by the general public. And I get it, because it's a mammoth. If you look at the rule, if you look at the act, I mean, it would probably fill this room.
Oh my gosh!
It's just a lot there. But the big advantage and the big plus of all this is there are options, and they're very palatable options. There's like most people when they come to seminars, like, I can't believe there's really something we can do about this. And the answer is absolutely. There's a lot of things. So that's why I say come to this. We'll talk about it. Like I said, there's a few things we just touch on. We talk mostly when we talk about how not to go broke in the nursing home. We really on the seminar, we dwell mostly on the Asset Protection Trust, which is something you can do now. I do touch on the crisis planning, but I often say at the seminars, my crisis planning, it would support a whole another 2-hour seminar all by itself, because there's several strategies that we can do. So I touch on that basically, but it's the kind of thing, if you're in that situation and you get a taste of what can be done, then let's schedule something and talk about it, because most people that are in crises, and crises of course mean you have a loved one that's in care, we have to see what strategy fits. There's several of them. Some fit better than others, but we need to know a little more about the situation. There's just not enough time in the 1 hour seminar.
Sure.
But the point I try to make is that there are options. Most people think if you've got a loved one that goes into long-term care, everything's gone. They're going to get it all. We'll never see it again. We're just SOL. And it's really not. It's really not. There's all kind of things that can be done, and there's a lot of things that depend, that factor into that. So
absolutely.
We talk about all that. So if you have any interest in that, you want to hear it. I mean, it's going to be a rainy Saturday anyway.
That's right.
Might as well be.
Starts at 10 a.m.
Got to be somewhere. Might as well be here. It does start at 10 o'clock, and I try to start as very close to 10 as I can get. Sometimes if I see several cars in the parking lot, I'll delay a minute or two. But I mean, it's usually by 10 or 10:03 at the most, and we get going. And when it's going to be a nonstop information for an hour or so, and it's the girls call it a fire hose of information, and it's a lot. But what I like to tell some folks is sometimes I'll see people out there frantically taking notes, taking pictures of my PowerPoint, and my advice would be this: just sit back, Let it come in, let it flow. It will make sense. Just let it digest. It might not make sense the moment you hear it, but as I talk about other things and the pieces start to fall together, it's not really rocket science. It's just new. It's just foreign. You haven't heard anything like it. And so when you hear these things, it will start to click. And if it doesn't, the more you think about it, the more it'll click. And So, but I mean, you can, if you're a note taker, I get it, go ahead. But just like I said, I think it's best just to sit back and listen. And the question and answer session is really good for folks because most people that ask a question, that question's on most other people's mind.
Sure.
You got 30, 40 people in a room, and somebody asks a question. There are certain questions I can tell you right now that are asked at every seminar. I can probably identify 5 questions. Actually, 2 or so I actually build into my PowerPoint because they get asked every time.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm just going to might as well not wait till somebody asks it. We'll just deal with it now because I know you're all thinking about it.
Yeah.
And we just answer those. So that's very informative to people too. And not only are they good questions, but they're questions about actual experiences. So now we're getting to where the rubber meets the road, what people are actually experiencing. Or when they when they have someone in the nursing home and they tell them this or they tell them that, then we can talk about, they'll tell you that. It's not exactly correct, but they don't know any better, and that's what they're telling you. So it's I get great reviews on my seminars. So if you're interested at all, it's worth the hour. It's worth the trip to Pulaski if you're here in Lawrenceburg. Again, it's a Saturday, tomorrow, the 14th, 10 o'clock at the American Legion in Pulaski. It's right off the square. Next one I do is going to be November the 2nd, which is also a Saturday. That one's up in Franklin.
Yeah.
We're on 99.7 out of Nashville, and so we have a lot of northern listeners that sometimes it's not such a simple drive to Pulaski. So every couple times a year we like to do something up in Franklin, and it's come around again. So
very good.
That one's a little less likely folks will drive from. But I have had people drive from all over the place to be there. I think my record is somebody drove 4.5 hours to be there, one way.
Yeah.
And they came 3 times. The guy came once.
That's amazing.
He came to talk to me, and what he said was, he said, I was going to come here and hear what you have to say and go home and explain it to my wife. He said, but there's no way I'm going to be able to explain to my wife everything that you said. So I'm coming to the next one, and I'm bringing my wife. And he did.
Yeah.
Then he came to the next one and brought his wife and her mother, his mother-in-law.
Oh, wow.
Because she was, she was pushing some long-term care issues and stuff.
Yeah.
And they became clients of mine, and I've been dealing with them for a couple of years now. So, again, it's good information. Be prepared to hear things you may not have heard before. Have an open mind. Just because you haven't heard it before doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?
That's exactly right.
So, I'm bound to tell you. When I tell you things, I'm bound to do my own fact checking.
Sure.
I'm an officer of the court. I can't get up there and give you a bunch of stuff that's not true. And so I give you the options. And this system is designed to work against us. This system is designed. I often say if you go into deal with TennCare, their job is to have you pay as much as you can privately pay.
Yeah.
Our job is to have them pay as much and us pay as less as we can privately pay.
Yeah.
And it is an adversarial system, and so that's the conflict. And so, but there are ways to get them to pay, and just follow the rules. There's a lot of rules that support individuals to get care. It just doesn't come across that way. So,
well, I can say from our own personal experience that having your help through facing the realities of what we had to face was challenging, but at the same time relieving when you finally just face what you have to face, deal with the issues you have to deal with. To me, it was relieving.
I think, if I remember, we sort of pushed back a couple times and got exactly what we wanted.
That's exactly right.
And so that's the kind of stuff that you as an individual may not be able to do.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you push back on something, you got to state your position, right?
Yes.
And so you have to, stating your position means you have to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where the problem is, because nobody gets into the information you really need to know. You go on the internet, and everybody and their brother has an opinion, and that's all it is an opinion or an experience. Yeah. But it's not fact, it's not things set certain, things that you can actually argue or something like that.
Right.
It's just, well, this is the way it's done. And now, it's not founded in fact. It's not, there's no citations to what they say that you can go and back it up. I mean, if somebody says to me, how can you save this much money? How can you save like $2.8 million? I mean, that's my record so far. Okay.
Yeah.
How can you protect $2.8 million of of property and all kind of real estate,
Right.
and still get the individual eligible when you have to have less than $2,000 of countable assets. How is that even possible? As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, I'll tell that story because it's a good one.
Yeah.
Had a client. It was, the mom was pretty well off. She, her and her husband, they had bought a lot of farmland. They had pretty big real estate investment. They had a lot of money in CDs. I think the total of the entire state was 2.8 million.
Wow.
And we had an exception that fit. We had a disabled child in the family that gives us a unique opportunity, and the family was all on board. And I'm telling you, when I analyzed their case and sat them down and explained my analysis to them, or sent them my written analysis that I do. I mean, they wanted to see me the very next day, and they said, "Look, let's go." And so we did. So we transferred these assets, kept them in the family, filed the application, got them down below $2,000, but kept everything, protected everything. Okay?
Yes.
Got their countable assets down to $2,000, which we do in every single case, but that doesn't mean we can't have $2.8 million of non-countable assets. That's
right.
the trick. And so, and then we filed the application, and in about 2.5 months, we got, or maybe less. It was pretty quick. It was about 2 months. We got 10-care approval for mom. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my client, well, not my client. My client is mom, but the child, the power of attorney for mom, okay,
Right.
goes to visit often, right? And he's over there, and somebody from the administration, or actually the administrator of the facility, comes to him, and according to him, when reporting back to me, made some kind of claim. I don't know what that attorney's doing, but he's probably doing something illegal because we do our own asset search, okay, and we see that your mom has all this property, a couple of $1 million worth of property. And he says, there's no way, it's not possible to get somebody eligible for TennCare that has this much property. As the administrator stands there holding in his hand the letter from TennCare that says approved. Now, who's his beef with? Me?
Yeah.
I didn't approve her. I just filed the application, right?
Right.
So if I don't respond to them because that doesn't ruffle my feathers. Because some of my staff members get livid when that happens,
Yeah.
when we hear about that. But, I got a little thicker skin. And if I were to respond to that, I'd say, you know what? Maybe you ought to call TennCare
Yeah.
and ask them why they approved this person because they're the ones that did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything. On my end, everything's full disclosure. If you look at the application, all this property is we list it all. We
Right.
list what we did with it. We have to.
Yeah.
I can't hide the ball. We can't play hide the ball with these guys. Yeah. But here's the difference between reading something on the internet. It's just somebody spouting off an opinion, and what I do when we say, okay, we took this property, and here's what we did with it. Here's how we did it. Here's the documentation did it. And by the way, here's the authority that allows us to do exactly what we just did.
Right.
And we do that with each and every asset. Now, what have we done? The caseworker that gets that, they're absolutely painted into a corner. How can they deny it when I tell them what we did, cite exactly how we did it, cite the authority that lets us do it, and then refresh them that everything we did was in compliance with the statute? Because we go out of our way in the application to push them into this corner, and now they have nothing decision to make other than approve because they are eligible.
Yes.
And now their only argument is, what are they going to say? Well, you can't do that. Well, that's written into the TennCare Act that we can do it. That's law. If you want to go to court with that position, I'd hate to be in your shoes because it's not going to be a good day for you. But and they get it. If they don't get it, they sometimes push it up to legal and they say, yeah, that's okay. So, and actually, I don't remember getting hardly any pushback on that case because everything was right down, stayed in our lane and stayed within the statute and did exactly what we could.
Right.
Don't do what we can't do. Don't try to get away with anything, and don't play hide the ball.
Yeah.
It overwhelms them when we when we fully disclose everything we do.
And what I've learned from
there it is.
listening to you and going through some of this, at least a little bit of this ourselves, is that there's no real trick or magic. It's a matter of using the rules and the laws that are in place that allow you to do those things that we do.
That's right. I think on one of these shows I talked about something that I like to call the Tennessee two-step. It's kind of a unique procedure, and when we do it, we cite every step along the way what we do. And I had a caseworker call and say, I'm having a hard time following what happened here, but I'm pretty positive it's not.
Yeah.
You can't do this. And I said, well, let me walk you through it. And I did. And by the time I got to the end of it, he's like, well, I guess that's okay. Everything you did falls under the rule. And I said, well, that's exactly right. Thank you, Captain Obvious, for telling me what I already know. But maybe I educated you a little bit, and I hope I did. So anyway, how did we get started on that? But anyway, I decided I was going to tell that story. So,
Yes, you were going to tell the story.
but I did say in the beginning of the hour that I did want to go over an experience, not quite as pleasant. I mean, I don't know if that was a pleasant experience. That came back from the facility. So they don't understand what we do. I have no obligation to explain to them what we do. I have one facility that keeps asking me to say, we need a copy of the 10-care application that you filed for our compliance.
Yeah.
And I said, well, first of all, I can't think of how many HIPAA rules I'd be violating if I handed you my client's application. I said, so no. And they say, well, what's your document request procedure? I said, well, first of all, I don't have one.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'm not giving you the application. And they get frustrated. And finally I said, you know what? I sent the application to 10-care. Why don't you ask them? If they give it to you, hey, I'm okay with that. It's not my doing. But they got it. Call them and ask them if they'll give you a copy of it. Then you got one. But you're not getting it from me because I'm an officer of the court. I can't do things. Just because you ask for it doesn't mean I have to do it.
Right.
I have certain rules I'm bound by. I said, I'd love to give it to you, but I can't. I just simply cannot do it. I'm not trying to say, well, it's my work product and I want you to see what we did. I mean, I just simply can't do it. You're asking for something that is unreasonable.
Yes.
But hey, I sent it in to 10-care. If they want to make a copy of it, mail it to you. That's okay with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not violating anything. But let me. Here's something that happened this week, and it ruffled my feathers a little bit. And I'm trying to prevent reoccurrence. When something happens that's not right,
Yeah.
I don't like to point blame. I mean, there's always somebody at fault, right?
Sure.
I don't like to point, even if it's in my office or something with people I work with, it doesn't do good to point out the blame. The only time pointing out the blame does any good is what I'm trying to accomplish, and that is prevent reoccurrence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If there's a mistake made, how to get made, why to get made, what do we do so it doesn't get made again? That's the way to approach it. Not whine and cry and blame the person and stuff like that. I mean, what's done is done, right?
Right.
But this was something that was odd because I had something similar happen to it, but never quite this way. But I have a client that's in a facility. Okay. Now, when we do that, and I think we did so with your father-in-law, I have a crisis team, consists of 4 people. You've dealt mostly with Courtney, who leads that, okay? But I have a couple other folks in there, and we always designate 2 of those folks as a 10-care authorized representative. Now, there's a form for that. And when a patient names, or through the power of attorney of whoever dealing with that person, names a 10-care authorized representative, that is the authority to talk to 10-care and deal with them. Okay, it's not really as high as a level of power of attorney, but it's kind of like an internal POA with 10-care. Does that make sense? It's like it's like a loose authority that if they want something like updated bank records, that person can supply it. They have the authority to speak on behalf of the patient, and even represent them at on the fair hearings, stuff like that. So, but you can't. Not just anybody can call 10-care and start talking about somebody else. They won't talk to you unless you have this authority. Right. It's a loose authority, but it has to be there. Right. Now, when you become 10-care authorized representative, that's the communication point. The statute says that's who you send the letter to. Now, you can send a letter to the patient, of course, right, which they usually do, but you must send it. If there's a authorized 10-care representative, you must, all correspondence, whether it's phone, email, letter, anything, has to go to the 10-care authorized representative because they are the one leading the point, right? Yes, yes. And you can name a couple. So we usually name 2 just to cover our bases. Well, and so what happens is I'm sitting at my desk, and I get a lot of email. I'm going through my email, and I see one from a facility. Yes. And I'm not going to name names or anything. But I look at it, and it's one of the people in the business office or administration. And the email says this. It says, I just got a call from the 10-care worker on, Aunt Gertrude's case. Okay? Yes. And she's asking for updated bank records, information on the QIT, the Qualified Income Trust, and something else. Okay. Pretty vanilla request. I mean, it was standard stuff, but and said, and then I called the daughter, let her know that, and informed her that this was it. And so I'm passing this on to you. And then they say, and let me know when this is filed, because there's a deadline on it, like September 26th. Okay. Yeah. So I read it. I could feel my blood start to boil, but I thought, well, before I react, I think I'll act instead of react. And so I get up with my 2 10-care authorized representatives and said, did we get did we get a call or an email or a letter with this information in it? And they said, no, nobody's contacted us. I don't know what they're talking about. And this was a phone call that they're referring to. Maybe it was an email. I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
Probably an email. I doubt it was. But anyway, it went to the facility. Now I started getting concerned, okay?
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I thought they just reached out and made what we call a verification request. They want information. And they reached out to a person who is not a TennCare authorized representative. The facility is not. You can only be there one way, through the form that you file where the patient, through his power of attorney, designates someone. They did not designate the facility.
Right.
So here's TennCare reaching out to somebody and not us. Now, I have had cases, I said earlier that I had something similar happen, but it doesn't upset me. I have had cases where they get the notice and the same day or the next day we get it.
Yes.
Now, I don't really think that's the way to do it, but as long as I'm in the loop, I'm okay, right?
Right.
Because we got to know. We didn't get it. And about 2 days went by and we still didn't get it. We should have got it by then. And so we reached out to TennCare, and I said, listen, before I get really mad at you or do something about it, because you just violated the law big time.
Right.
But I don't want to be blamed. I don't want to be pointing the finger. I want to fix this situation. So here I'm including the TennCare authorization forms that our patients signed that we sent to you with the application. We are the people you need to contact, And if you don't contact us, I'm going to take the next step and the next remedy, which is going to be very harsh on you because you are in direct violation of the rule. Now, is it really asking too much for the people that make the rules to follow them? It probably is, isn't it? I mean, that probably is just unreasonable of me to think that. And so I got up with them, and I don't know how, they said, okay, we'll be glad to. But here's the thing that bothered me. There was a deadline in this thing.
Yes.
Now, this facility, I hate to break the news to you, and I hate to tell you this, but not all facilities are friendly to me.
Okay.
Some are very friendly. Some are adverse.
Yeah.
Okay, now this individual is somewhat adverse. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what bothers me is what if this person was adverse to the point that they didn't pass that on to me? Now I got a deadline ticking away. And when that comes and goes, and I would have never responded to that was going to be catastrophic for me to recover from. I mean, I can go in and say, well, they never sent it to me. I mean, that's not the argument I want to make.
Right.
So I'm thankful that they sent it, but it should have never been that way. I should have been in the loop at least somewhere. I should have got that notice. And actually what we did was we told them, actually, if you're going to, not only do you have to let us know, but don't be sending me an email. I want the TennCare letter asking for this information. So a couple of days went by, and we got the actual letter, which starts our clock.
Yes.
We didn't waste 7 days now because they sent an email to the facility. So, I said, okay, I want the full time, so let's punt that 9/26 date out to where it belongs.
Right.
And they did. And we responded the very next day. We had all the information already ready. We're ready to go.
Right.
But you can see that could have been a real mess.
Yeah.
That could have been a real mess if I was never informed of that deadline by the very people who are bound by law to inform me. Now, the argument I would have going forward is, hey, they didn't inform me, they're supposed to. That's not the one I want to argue. I want to argue the eligibility thing for my client.
Right.
And so that kind of got my feathers ruffled a little bit, that even happened. And so
this was a TennCare mistake,
in my turn, it was a colossal
violation.
Colossal blunder on their part.
Yeah.
Now, again, did the person know or didn't know? I mean, I think we got it resolved. At least in that case, we got it resolved.
Yeah.
But could it happen again? Probably.
But and of course, if someone doesn't catch it or doesn't know, and that falls through the cracks, then what?
That's what I'm saying. That could have put us at a tremendous disadvantage.
Yeah.
I think I probably could have recovered from it, not without a lot of messing around.
Yeah.
And again, we write the laws. When you have these laws that are written in any subject, a good example is the rules of the road, driving.
Yeah, absolutely.
When laws are written, it creates an expectation. I do this, I fill out the form, I'm a representative. The law says when you're a representative, you are the only person that's going to be contacted by TennCare. There's an expectation that that's what they're going to do.
Right.
Now when you do something just off the cuff, my expectation is thrown out the window. It's kind of like driving. Have you ever, and don't call in and get mad at me if you've ever done this.
Yeah.
But have you ever, you're driving along and somebody I know what it is. My wife is bad about this. I hope she's not listening, but we've argued about this, and I just gave up.
Yeah.
But some people do this. Now, don't get me, I'm not bashing it. I get why people do it.
Right.
But it's like some people say, my wife will be driving along and she puts her left turn signal on. I said, why are you turning here? She goes, I'm not. I said, why is your left turn signal on? She goes, the guy in front of me is turning left, and I want to let the car behind me know that somebody in front of me is turning.
Yeah.
And my response is, you got to be kidding me. Okay. Why? She goes, well, it's just courtesy. I'm letting the people behind me know that somebody in front of me is turning.
Yeah.
Now, let's just look at this for a second. The rules of the road are when you put a turn signal on, the expectation is that car is turning. So you're putting on a turn signal and you have no intention of turning. Now, whether it's a good idea or courteous, I'm not going there because it probably is. But it ruins the expectation that the rules are designed to present. The expectation of to announce a turn is in the rules. And now the car behind you says, oh, I can adjust my speed and my distance accordingly because they're making a left-hand turn. They may have to stop because a car's on the other, or they may just drift on through and go. I don't know, but that's the expectation. So go back to 10 care. When the rules are written and you follow them, you expect certain things.
Yes.
Because you expect them to follow the rules. And so when they just decide to do whatever they want, now it just kind of, that's what got me a little flustered. It's like, okay,
I can tell.
What am I going to expect from these people now? What next? That's such a colossal blunder. I'm thinking, I don't know how they're going to top it, but I guarantee they probably will someday.
Yeah.
But so, we dealt with it right away, but I don't know. I just sort of dealt with that person. So, caseworkers are come and go, and there's a million of them, and you never get the same one twice. So who knows? But we had a team meeting on it, and I said, we need to be alert and keep track somehow of this. And if a month goes by and we don't hear anything, maybe we should reach out and say, hey, we're here. Anything going on? Do you need anything from us or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
And remind them. Say, hey, by the way, if you do need anything, I'm the authorized 10 care representative. So don't forget to get me in the loop. Because you make Mr. Stan mad again in court.
There doesn't seem in my line of work, which is different than yours, but we deal with a lot of follow up, and that seems to be important. The follow up, just to keep a pulse, keep the push going, that kind of thing. Where we're waiting on a closing, for instance, we're trying to get to closing, so there's all this follow up to see if everything's getting done that's supposed to get done before we go to closing. Same thing with the application.
Oh, yeah. It'd be like you go on an auction and say, okay, I'm ready to start the auction, ready to take the first bid, and somebody goes, oh, wait a minute, I made a bid yesterday, and somebody determined that it was probably the best bid we're going to get, so it's already been sold. Now you're standing there as an auctioneer with a bunch of people, and now you're completely lost on what to do.
That would make a lot of people mad.
Well, the procedure's been broken.
Yeah, that's not their procedure, right? Yeah.
I guess when you get into government, especially when you get into politics, procedure is just a word. Nobody pays attention to anything. But in this world, it means a lot. And that's, and because I use those rules are the reason for my success.
Yes.
Probably because, maybe not because I'm the only one who follows them, but when you do something and you have the full weight of the law behind what you do, you're always going to be successful.
Well, you definitely can play a better game if you know all the rules.
Yeah, like I said, you paint them into a corner.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do but give you the answer the rules support. If they give you anything else, it's inappropriate. And now the stage is set for my appeal. I've got everything in place. I don't even worry about the appeal now. I just got to get to it and explain what happened. They're the ones that do most of the explaining is why they did what they did. Yeah. And the judge is one of the first ones to ask, under what authority were you acting when you did that? And they don't have one to give. As a matter of fact, I had a hearing one time where you can hear them ruffling through pages and looking at stuff. Yeah. And I just interjected and said, Judge, I'll tell you right now, you can give them time if you want, but I'm telling you right now, it's what they're looking for is not there. Yeah. I said, I'm very familiar with the rule. It's not there. It's just not there. Right. They're going to, and he said, well, I'm going to give them, 2 weeks or something like that. Yeah. And that's exactly what they came back with and said, well, we were doing this, but we didn't interpret it correctly, right? Because it wasn't there, right? And it's like it wasn't, So anyway, I thought that was an interesting story, and and that's why I often say in this area of law, if people ever needed an advocate, it really is here because of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And you got to push back. You got to push back. You can't be afraid to push back. It's not like they're going to come down on you for pushing back. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe they've tried that sometimes. I push back, and I think maybe the next case they see come by, they think they're going to be harder on. But, you go ahead and be as hard as you want. I'm in perfect legal position, so, be as hard on it as you want. I mean, because I will be successful on it. I mean, I can't promise. I tell people I can't guarantee a result.
Yeah.
So if you hire me to do something, I can't say I guarantee we'll get your dad eligible. But I can tell you what my track record is.
You got a good
I've
record.
been 100% successful so far.
Yeah.
But but again, and we are that way because of how we structure it. It's a good working knowledge of how it works. I know what my opponent does. I have it was called 10-care is really called the Age, Blind, and Disabled Act, and I have the manual. I have the book that they're reading when they get my application. I know the guidance that the 10 caseworkers are given. So I know exactly what they're supposed to do when they get it, and so we do exactly that.
I was going to ask you. I just happened to think while you were talking there. Of course, you are an estate planning firm. You deal with estate plans and wills, trust, all that kind of stuff. What percentage, I guess, or how much of your business is like crisis mode, and how much is actually estate planning before crisis mode?
Good question.
But
we kind of categorize that stuff,
Yeah.
And we actually, sometimes we do will plans for people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Sometimes we do trust plans for people, and then we do our asset protection trust, which is a trust plan.
Yes.
And there's that. That's the pre-planning, okay? And then the crisis planning is usually those things are. It's usually a little late in the game for those things.
Right.
So we do the crisis planning stuff. I'm going to say it's probably, as far as actual number.
Yeah.
It's maybe 2/3 planning, 1/3 crisis.
Yeah.
But that is increasing on the crisis side. I mean, I'm forced with expanding at least some of my personnel, because the people that deal with the crisis are in my opinion, are getting overloaded.
Yeah.
Okay, because that is increasing and it's increasing because of this. People at the facility. I have several facilities where the actual people that work there refer their patients to me.
Yes.
You'd actually be amazed if I could tell you how many people that actually work in nursing homes are clients of mine.
Yeah.
That would probably amaze you.
Yeah.
But these are the people on the front lines that see what's going on.
Right.
And they don't want that happening to them. And so I have other patients that when we get somebody eligible, and they're so grateful that we managed to do this, and then while they're visiting, somebody else is there, that complaining that they're getting cleaned out or something like that. Hey, why don't you give this guy a call or something? And that's the best business there is, when there's a referral word of mouth, and that grows as we. And now we're dealing in quite a few different facilities. We're probably dealing over a dozen facilities around.
Yeah.
And so it's growing a lot because of that. It grows a lot because of our seminars and stuff. Because there's a lot of folks in care. 30 years ago, there was a lot less. But it's more, it's like anything else. There's more people in care now.
Yeah.
Or headed towards care. You can come up with whatever reason you want with that, health or processed food or whatever it is. But the fact is, there are more people trying to enter the system now than ever before.
Yes.
And that's just going to get more and more. So there's more people looking for these solutions. Because when you go and talk to them, you leave there with pretty bleak outcome, because they tell you what's going to happen. They say, hey, just keep paying us until you don't have anything left, and then
10-care takes over.
10-care will take over. And that is a way to do it. It's not a very smart way to do it, but I guess it's a way.
Yeah.
Some people come to me and say, hey, that's what happened to Mom. And, it's hindsight now, but it doesn't have to happen going forward.
Right.
If some people don't know any better, and they just do what the facility tells them to do, and that's how it ends up. But I'm on the radio. I do seminars. I try to get the word out as much as I can. Sometimes don't know if I'm putting a dent in it or not, but try to get it out there. So if you're in that boat, or you're worried about that boat, and you want to hear some options, come hear them. It sure doesn't hurt. Information never hurts.
Yeah.
Whether you act on it or not, or it's for you, who knows? We don't know yet until you hear it.
Yeah.
But it never hurts to be informed about something, especially in an area like this where there's so much misinformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I like to go on the internet and read stuff and just to get a laugh sometimes. And, some people are so, I think they ought to be sued. You know what I mean? Because people, they come across as such experts, and they'll cite things. And when you go look at the citation that they give you, it's, I guess I can't say that, but it's not, there's no validity to it whatsoever.
Right.
And They ought to be sued for that. And I don't know how they could, but you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, do you have no shame? Do you want your opinion to be right so much that you'll falsify what you're saying just to feel like you know what you're talking about?
Right.
I'm not talking about attorneys. I'm just talking about people on the internet just voicing their opinion. If you're an attorney, you're held to what you say. You know, if you give an opinion and it's wrong, I mean, there's a remedy for that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm held to a higher standard when I say things. No, I don't post stuff on the internet because everybody and their brother would just attack it.
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. This is the way this is the way my dad did it, this is the way my granddaddy did it, his daddy did it. Well, that may be the way they did it. It doesn't necessarily make it the right way.
Yeah.
It makes it a way, but
Not the best way.
what about other options that are out
Yeah.
there? That's all it is. I'm not trying to say, some people do things right or wrong, but
Right.
once you know all the options, then you know which is the right one for you.
Yeah. Well, I asked you about question about the two different areas of work for you, because in our case we've kind of been focused on the immediate need.
Right.
And so we didn't do the pre-planning, so we had to do some things differently.
Right.
But I know that you have a wonderful area of practice where you can do pre-planning, and then all of this is worry-free when you get there.
Oh, absolutely. And I try to talk about that this summer. The best thing you can do, you hear me talk about 10 care all the time. Right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
hear me talk about, hey, let's get these countable assets and turn them into non-countable assets so we can save them, right?
Yeah.
And just like in your father-in-law's case, I mean, we're doing that in this crisis period. We're doing it now so we can get it done.
Yeah.
The very best thing you can do is before you're in the facility, or even before it's really a thought.
Yeah.
I mean, you just might be worried, well, if someday I hope I don't go there someday, but
Yeah.
when we do this asset protection trust I talk about a lot,
Yeah.
the very minute, that's what that does. That gives us an opportunity to do exactly what we do in crisis way early.
Yes.
And it's the only option that's available when you're not in care is the trust. Now, you take the trust, you take all this property, especially the big ticket items like the real estate, maybe investment accounts or something like that,
Yeah.
big ticket items.
Yeah.
The minute we put them in the trust, the very minute we assign them to the trust,
Yeah.
we have changed it from countable to non-countable.
Well, time out just a minute. A lot of people may be afraid of putting everything in the trust.
Well, we don't put everything in there, but we
Well,
do
I
put,
mean,
yeah, but you're
whatever
right.
assets they put in the trust, are they losing control, that kind of thing? And okay, so what happens if it's in the trust? Then what?
Well, I mean, again, I talk about this some at the seminar, and it's hard to do on radio because I usually explain it with a whiteboard behind me in my office. But when you put property in trust, what we're doing is we're making it unavailable to you for the cost of care. Doesn't mean it's unavailable to you. There's a way for you to still get at this property. However, you just have to do it a specific way. So there, you are slightly limiting your ability to get at this property. You can do it. It's just not as easy and fluid as if you did. If you didn't do anything at all, you can just go get the bank and take the money out. Well, you can still get to the money or get to the real estate. You just have to go to the bank and take it out a different way. But it's not a very difficult way.
Yeah.
You just have to do it that way. And that's what maintains our creditor protection, because the law will give us creditor protection if we have certain limitations. So we have to live with those limitations. In my opinion, they're not very hard to live with.
Right.
Given the alternative of not, if you can't live with these limitations, the property's exposed. And so given that, they're not hard to do at all, because the alternative is everything is exposed.
Right.
And it's not hard to create this creditor protection trust and put the property into it. One thing, you have infinite amount, you retain all the control.
Yes.
Because, meaning if you put, common thing is people put a house in a trust and they say, well, what if I want to sell it?
Yeah.
The answer is, well, then sell it. You can sell a house in this in asset protection trust.
Yeah.
Here's an example of one of the limitations.
Okay.
You put the house in the trust. Now, when you put the house in the trust, they can't get at it. Because remember, I say when I talk about countable and non-countable,
Yeah.
if you struggle with that term, insert the words available for cost of care.
Yes.
So a countable asset's available for cost of care, like a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
You'd be expected to sell it, and not the home, but you have to sell the home later after
Yeah.
death in estate recovery.
Right.
But let's say a piece of property, not the home, a second home. You would be expected to sell that because it's a countable asset
Right.
and use it for cost of care. That's what they expect. Now, that's not what you have to do, but that's what they expect.
Yeah.
So you have this countable asset. So you put it in the trust. The minute we put it in the trust, it's now a non-countable asset. It's no longer available for the cost of the care because the trust owns it.
Yes.
Now, let's say you decided to sell it. You,
Okay.
the maker of the trust. Can you? I mean, this is an irrevocable trust. Can you sell a house in an irrevocable trust? The answer is absolutely. Call Jeff, your real estate broker, and say, I want to sell this house.
Yes, do
okay,
that.
how much you want for it? Well, I want to get $250,000 for it, or whatever. Have Jeff list it on the, whatever you call that, the MLS, whatever. You
Yeah.
put it up for sale, right?
Right, exactly.
And you get people call about it and stuff. You get the price you want, sell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say it's a $250,000 house. You get a buyer for $250,000. Fast forward to the end. When you get the $250,000, that $250,000 has to stay in the trust to stay creditor protected.
Yes.
Now, has your position changed? No. You had a $250,000 asset in the trust. Now you still have a $250,000 asset in the trust. It just changed posture from the real estate to the money.
Yes.
Now, it has to stay in the trust because if it's not in the trust, it's exposed to you. If it's exposed to you, then it's exposed to them.
Yes.
So it stays in the trust. You want to buy another house? You want to go to Florida? Buy it. Take that $250,000 and buy a house in Florida. Just when you get to the closing, say, oh, by the way, please give me the deed, make the deed out as the new grantee is my trust.
Yes.
Just like the house was that you sold
Yeah,
was titled to
absolutely.
your trust. And now, think of it. You know, when I draw it on my whiteboard, I draw this box, and we moved this house into the box. Well, we sold the house, and we used the money to buy another house. Now, has the asset never left the box, right? The first house was in the box. The money we got for it stayed in the box, and the new house we bought stayed in the box. So the $250,000 never left the trust. It does not matter that it changes posture from real estate to cash, back to real estate, to gold, to CDs, to cannabis stocks, to Edward Jones account or a managed account. It does not matter the posture of the asset.
Yeah.
You got to stop thinking about, I got a house that's it's an asset worth $250,000.
Yes.
And that's how you need to treat it. It's an asset. It's a $250,000 asset. It doesn't matter the posture it's in. As long as it's in the trust, it's creditor protected.
Yes.
So, one of the hoops we have to jump through is once you put it in the trust, it has to stay there to be creditor protected. But you still have all this control over it.
Right.
You can still live in the house if it's the primary home. I mean, you still got to pay the mortgage if you got one. You got to clean the gutters and mow the grass like you would. It's pretty seamless to you once you put it in this trust. And then when you want to sell it, you can sure do that.
Yeah.
You want to lease it, rent out a room, nothing in the trust prohibits you from doing that. Nothing. But the ownership now resides with the trust. So
Yeah.
you ever hear people say, or sometimes people say, oh, this is what rich people say, but some people say, I don't want to own anything, but I want to control everything. It's along those concepts.
Sure.
And it's, so you have the house, you have the real estate, you can control it every day of the week. Let's put money in this trust, $100,000 in the bank. And you say, you know what? Not getting very good interest. I want to buy cannabis stocks with it. I
Yeah.
think they're going to take off. So you do. 2 weeks later, you say, well, that's not working. I'm going to put it in gold.
Yeah.
So sell the cannabis stocks, buy gold. Sell the gold, put it in a CD. When the CD matures, cash it out. Don't roll it over and say, I'm going to put this in a managed account. You can control that asset, that $100,000 asset, as much as you want. Every day of the week, you can change its posture. You can do whatever you want, or nothing at all, or never, right? So, which if it was available to you, you could do that. The difference is if you don't have it in the trust and you're doing that with this $100,000, and somebody goes into care, that $100,000 is a pure accountable asset available for care, and
Yeah.
you are expected to spend it.
Yeah.
When it's in the trust, it is no longer available for the cost of care,
Yeah.
and it is outside the eligibility equation because when you try to determine if somebody's eligible for TennCare, they only look at countable assets. It's the
Right.
only asset in
Right.
the equation.
Right.
Are there other assets other than countable? Yes, there's non-countable. Are there categories of non-countable? Yes, quite a few. We use every one of them. So that's it's hard to explain on the radio sometimes, but that's the whole process.
Yeah.
And the most ideal thing to do, and I talk a lot about this trust at the seminar. I said earlier we just kind of touch on crisis because that's so involved. I just can't fit it in.
Yeah.
But we talk a lot about this trust. That's the very best thing to do.
Yeah.
Put property in trust now, make it non-countable. Get this magic 5-year clock started now because, TennCare is the only creditor out there that has a magic 5-year time period because of the government. So get it started now, and it works out. So
I would think, just listening to you and learning what I've learned about not letting things just happen to you, but take advantage of the rules that are there and the laws that are in place and be proactive about planning your estate and your estate's future for things that you want to take place with your belongings.
And that's kind of the word planning. I mean, it
Yeah.
requires some forethought. It requires you do something ahead of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can end up in a crisis situation and never see it coming. That happens to people.
Yeah.
You know, you get a stroke at
Yeah.
age 65. I mean, nobody
Yeah.
saw that coming, right?
Right.
I get that. Those things, those what ifs happen. But you know, we have these seminars and all that. If that has piqued your interest to think about this, then kudos to you, because people procrastinate a lot in this area. So come on and hear what we have to say. And if planning fits, we'll do it. If it doesn't
Sure.
fit, then hey, you'll at least would have learned something and had some good blueberry muffins, right?
Yeah. Let's remind folks of a couple of things. The seminar you got coming up, but also you're involved in the theater over there. I want you to plug that over
Yeah,
there.
well, we got just a little bit of
Got a
time.
little
but
bit of time?
We started Grease. I call it Grease with a twist because all the cast members, well, not all of them, but the leads are all 30 years old and older.
Yeah.
With beards, and some are bald, and they're the T-Birds, right?
Yeah.
And the Pink Ladies are the same.
That's awesome.
And so we've had 2 weeks of rehearsals. We're still in the early stages, but it's set for the second and third weekend in November. I'll nail those dates down, but tickets are on sale already.
That'll be a lot of fun.
So it is going to be a lot of fun. So far, the rehearsals are half the time the cast is laughing,
Yeah.
But as soon as they get that out of their system, we'll get it down. But it's great. But let me just, in a little bit of time, the seminar tomorrow,
Yes.
Saturday the 14th at the American Legion in Pulaski. Come on over to it. It's 10 o'clock. We call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home. If you need to call my office and get on the RSVP list, or just walk in. We accept walk-ins. 931-363-7222. Talk to one of the gals. Or go to my website, estateplanstand.com. And like I said, it's already Friday before, so if you decide, if you talk to the wife or whatever and say, let's go, just pop in. We have plenty of room for walk-ins.
Absolutely.
It's no big deal. The RSVP is very informal. So anyway, that brings us pretty much to the end. So like I said, the fastest hour of my week. Actually, I had a good time talking about stuff today. I kind of feel like I vetted enough, and I kind of feel a little bit of relief. So thank you.
You had a little relief valve coming on there, didn't you?
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Stan Pierchoski, everybody. We'll see you next Friday, my friend.
We're here every Friday from 8 to 9. And it's always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
This is WDXE, W287AA, and W237FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.